Instagram engagement sometimes feels like pulling teeth, doesn't it? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, the place for bosses and business owners who want to show up consistently, creatively, and most importantly, through their content. Today, we're going to delve into the world of Instagram and the task of driving engagement, which for some of us, if we're honest, actually seems like a myth. I mean, do people actually engage on Instagram, or is that just something that we only see on influencers' channels? Well, yes, they do. And today we're going to learn how to do that more effectively. But before we dive into that, I wanted to address a couple of things. The simple fact of the matter is that engagement is getting more difficult. And much like we encounter ads in everyday society and billboards in everyday society, and we don't tend to notice them anymore, social media posts are much the same. They're so much a part of our world that we fail to even recognize them. We fail to engage with them. Think about the times where you scroll Instagram, you wouldn't be able to even recall the last 30 posts that you saw, right? Because everything is kind of just normal to us. We're used to it. Very little surprises or delights us or captures our attention in such a way that it compels us to action. So if we want to drive more engagement, then we need to understand what actually compels people to engage. And I've distilled it down to three main places that it comes from. The first place is from relationship. So the deeper your relationship is with someone, the higher the chance of you interacting with their content is going to be. So think about it like this. If your friend gets married and they put out their wedding photos on social media, there's a good chance that you're going to like it, if not comment on it as well, because your relationship with them is much deeper than, say, a marketer who puts out a piece of content educating you about something, right? The second place that engagement stems from is very strong emotion. So personally and anecdotally, I share content from a very strong place of emotion. So I actually shared this piece of content on my Instagram stories last night, and I have been very known to talk about this very thing on my Instagram stories before. So in Devil Wears Prada, they really make out Meryl Streep's character to be the villain, whereas when you look at the story again and again, it's actually Andy's boyfriend who continually holds her back and gets mad that she doesn't stay the same and that she doesn't do the things that he's used to. And it doesn't acknowledge the fact that there are seasons in our life where we have to hustle, and there are seasons in life where we actually have to work really hard and put in time and sacrifice other things to get to the place that we want to go. So when I stumbled across this meme, and by the way, I don't even follow that account, it just sort of showed up in my feed, I had a very strong emotional reaction to it and I shared it. And as you can see, I also commented on it. And that's really normal behavior. If something is relatable and compels our emotions, we tend to share it or comment on it or engage with it because it expresses part of us that maybe we haven't expressed in that way before, or it reinforces something that we believe, but it comes from that deep sense of self and emotions that are attached to certain situations or things or people or thoughts that we've had. So the third place that engagement comes from is a place of gamification. On Instagram, as an example, people will go to the hashtag section and they'll find hashtags that their ideal client uses, and they will go into those and comment on different posts, because the numbers game suggests that if they comment on enough posts, they will get followed out of that, right? The other way that gamification is used, particularly on Instagram, is through engagement pods, which, if you haven't seen my very old but still very relevant video on engagement pods, you can watch it here. And the fact that I think that they suck, because they do, but people use them. So there's a group of people get together and say, I'll comment on your post and you can comment on my post. And the idea is that the reach of the post goes further, the comments drive further engagement, but ultimately engagement pods are a zero-sum game. At best and at worst, they actually negatively affect your account. because they feed the wrong information to the algorithm about who they should push content to, and this information ultimately works against you. These are two bad examples of gamification, and I don't suggest that you go after them, but today we're going to talk about some really fun and really good examples of gamification that really just make your content more fun for people to engage with. So today, because we're talking about Instagram and the hot thing on Instagram at the moment is Reels, I'm coming at this video through the lens of creating Reels. So if you're not yet doing it, you can apply most of these suggestions to your posts in your feed, but I want you to start thinking about Reels, and if you are already creating Reels, then these are going to be perfect for that format. All right, so let's get down into some thumb-stopping examples of Reels that are going to drive engagement. And our first one is what I like to call interactive content. So what do I mean by interactive content? What I mean by this is creating Reels where the audience needs to screenshot or tap the screen in order to achieve an outcome. So a specific example I saw was actually on TikTok, and I don't have it to show you here, but let me explain what happened. So this lady got on camera and she told this story about a conversation that she had with a particular Hollywood celebrity. Now, she either had it via DM or text message, I can't really remember, but she built up the story in such a way where you needed to actually read the DM or the text message to not only verify that it was actually real, but secondly, to get the high point of the story, the answer to the story, the narrative that she built up, the crux of that was within that text message or DM post. And what she had done is about 3/4 of the way into that TikTok, she had posted a screenshot of that conversation, but she'd done it so fast that in order to read it, you had to tap the screen at the most perfect time to, get the satisfaction to be able to close the loop on that narrative. And then she made a provocative statement at the end to sort of basically tell you that if you wanted to see the crescendo of that conversation, you had to go back and tap it at the exact time. So I found myself doing it a number of times and I couldn't get it. So I ended up just frustrated and leaving, but I didn't hate, I wasn't angry about it. It was kind of fun. Now you have to think about how can I apply this for my business? So a great way for me to be able to apply this to my business would be perhaps to talk about a really great social media post that we created for a client that garnered shares and comments, and maybe it even drove revenue in a way that no other post had done before. And I tell that story in a way that people want to know what the post was, right? And so then I can put a screenshot of the post or a template of the post really, really quickly into the Instagram reel, and people have to tap on it at the right time in order to see what it was. If you do this one well, you're gonna find that it drives engagement regardless of whether or not there's a call to action, because the fun nature of it just compels people to comment, to at least like. And if you really wanna ensure that you get that comment in the comment section to really push that engagement, then it's a good idea to finish off that video with some type of call to action. So in the case of the example that I just gave you, I might say at the end of my video, tell me how many tries it took you to see the post, or something to that effect. Okay, so that's a really fun way to drive engagement. The second way that I want to talk about today is that gamifying experience that we touched on before, but we want to do it in a really positive way that leaves people happy and isn't an inauthentic expression of our brand or our content. Okay, so in this gamifying experience, what we want to do is create a scenario where our video then encourages our audience to have to go to the comments in order to receive the outcome, basically. The reason that this works is because if you're already encouraging people to go to the comments, then they're already in the place that they need to be in order to engage with you. So it's not much more extra effort to actually write something. Whereas if there's no reason for them to go to the comments, chances are they're just going to scroll through it, right? So an example of this is to create a talking head Reels video where you address a client or ideal client pain point. Maybe this is an issue that your clients often have, and then you provide a solution that's tactical and practical, but you don't provide it in the video. Like I said, you provide it in the post itself underneath in the writing area, or you pop it in the comments as suggested before. Your call to action then becomes, hey, if you're having trouble with this, I have a template for you to use in the comments below. And while you're already there, leave me a comment and let me know if this is an issue that you experience. So not only are you driving them there to actually get the solution and the outcome, but you're also asking them to participate in the conversation. And because they're already there, it's much easier for them to take action on that. So an example of this is a reel that I just created last night. That is a wheel that just has numbers on, right? And you either tap the screen or screenshot the screen in order to get a number. And that number corresponds with the social media prompt that I've actually put in the post underneath it. And it says down the bottom that those prompts are in the comments below. So this was a really fun way of providing a practical, tactical solution for my audience, but also aiming to drive that engagement. Now it's pretty fresh, so I can't really report back on it for you, but I already have a couple of comments on there and I can say that it's reached well over 100% of my audience. So I highly recommend trying one of these as well, because a lot of the reels at the moment aren't strategic. They're very easy to scroll through and not engage with, much like the example of billboards and ads that I used earlier. They're just very gray, right? They don't stand out. But in a world of gray, if you're neon, people are gonna stop and look at you. So I encourage you to be generous in your reels, be generous with your knowledge, and give something away that's of value, and then gamify it through that reel and through the way that you show up in order to have people engage with you more in those comments. So if you want to check out the reel that I put out last night, you can find my Instagram below or the handles up here on the screen. But tell me, have you started using Reels on Instagram yet? Or are you about to start? Leave me a comment below and let me know, because I'm really fascinated to see who's using Reels and who isn't yet. And you know, if you want to go the extra mile, tell me why you are or why you aren't. And I would love to hear any results that you've had from it. So my third and final way for you to increase engagement on Instagram Reels is through what I call an infinite loop. So I see this a lot in the cooking space at the moment, where the first scene of the reel is the finished product or the finished dish. And then you make it through the reel, and the last scene of the reel is the same moment, right? Which actually means they've cut off just before that point at the end and attached it back to the front. It sounds really confusing, but basically it just looks like a never-ending video, and it's seamless, and you can't actually, it takes you a minute to figure out that you're actually watching a looped video. So what this actually does is it creates extra watch time on your video, and while it may not actually compel that moment of engagement, watch time is actually a form of engagement, and it informs the algorithm that people are watching this content for longer, which means people are liking your content, which makes the algorithm push it out further to other people. So ultimately, we are not just trying to increase engagement for no reason. Increased engagement helps to elevate the respective culture of our communities. It creates a sense of safety in our communities where people can see that other people are commenting and they know that it's a safe place for them to do the same thing. And then also creates an environment whereby people can reach out and comment and interact with you, and you can give a personalized response, which reinforces that safety and elevates that trust. And people know that this space, your space, is a safe corner of the social media platform that they're on. Now, I know content creation in general is relatively overwhelming for a lot of people. It's why 11 Lights Media exists. We create content for many brands and businesses to take away the pain and the overwhelm of doing it themselves. So if you're in that place and you want to be able to do content easier, then I have a content roadmap for you in the description below. Make sure you download it. It's free and it's going to help you plan, map, and organize your content in such a way that it takes out the overwhelm for you and allows you to show up consistently in order to grow your social media. And finally, in the video that I have coming for you next week, I'm going to be showing you how to create your own DIY content creation strategy. So ultimately, this is going to take the brain work out of deciding the visual format of your content as well as the meat of the content itself. So make sure you keep your eye out for that one. And I will see you next week. Bye.